Beneath the dazzling surface of Hollywood's glamour, a far more unsettling truth often hides in the shadows. The pursuit of perfection through plastic surgery doesn't always have a happy ending. Numerous celebrities, in their relentless effort to defy aging, have emerged with shocking transformations that left the public completely aghast. From disastrous facelifts that went horribly wrong to complete makeovers that rendered them unrecognizable. These cautionary tales expose the steep and often heartbreaking price of chasing an impossible standard of beauty. Join us as we explore the world of celebrity cosmetic procedures gone wrong, a place where fame and profound regret collide. It begs the question, what price would you be willing to pay for flawless perfection? First up is Linda Evangelista, the iconic supermodel whose career was quite literally put on ice. You might recall Linda Evangelista's legendary quote, "I don't wake up for less than $10,000 a day." But as it happened, she was about to face a cost far greater than her daily rate, and it had nothing to do with a Paris runway show. The price was paid inside a fat freezing machine, a device that promised a sculpted physique, but instead delivered disfiguring lumps of hardened tissue. It's a shocking truth. Linda, celebrated as the ultimate chameleon of the 1990s fashion world, went from starring on more than 700 magazine covers to being unable to even look at herself in the mirror. This entire ordeal began with a procedure known as CoolSculpting, which was marketed as the modern-day fountain of youth, all by simply freezing away unwanted fat. For those unfamiliar with it, CoolSculpting is essentially designed to give your problem areas the cold shoulder permanently. The goal is to freeze fat cells, causing them to shrink and disappear. However, for Linda, the treatment had the opposite effect, causing her fat cells to stage a rebellious, swollen protest. She experienced a rare and devastating side effect known as paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, which is just the clinical term for saying, whoops, your fat cells actually multiplied. Instead of becoming slimmer, the areas Linda had treated grew significantly larger, became hard to the touch, and developed unsightly lumps. Imagine putting on a gorgeous designer dress only to realise it's secretly constructed from bubble wrap. That's the kind of bizarre and unwelcome surprise she faced. The consequences extended far beyond the physical changes. Linda's legendary confidence was completely shattered like a delicate crystal glass dropped on a marble floor. She withdrew from her career, vanished from the public eye, and couldn't even stand to see her own image. It was a shocking transformation from a celebrated high-fashion muse to someone living as if they were in witness protection. And this was all the result of a supposedly simple, non-invasive cosmetic treatment. Then in 2021, Linda finally broke her silence, demonstrating the kind of fierce resilience only a true supermodel possesses. She filed a $50 million lawsuit against the parent company of CoolSculpting, casting a harsh light on the hidden dangers of the beauty technology industry. And the outcome was a victory. She successfully settled the lawsuit in 2022, holding the company accountable. Gradually, she began her return to the spotlight, even appearing on the cover of Vogue once more. She was no longer in hiding, and while the healing process continues, she is now courageously embracing her story and her scars. Her journey serves as more than just a warning for those considering a quick fix for their chin. It's a powerful reminder that even the brightest stars can be ensnared by the seductive promise of absolute perfection. Ultimately, it suggests that true beauty may not be about achieving flawlessness at all. Perhaps it's really about possessing the courage to declare, yes, this is part of my story and I have endured. Now let's turn to Priscilla Presley, a tale of a graceful icon's unfortunate encounter with silicone sabotage. In the hallowed halls of Graceland, Priscilla Presley was once the undisputed queen of timeless elegance. Her flawless porcelain complexion, striking high cheekbones and iconic jet black hair gave her an almost royal aura, and that wasn't just due to her marriage to the king of rock and roll. But along the path of endless red carpets and the universal quest for eternal youth, Priscilla made a fateful decision involving a cosmetic procedure. And here's the shocking part, it involved injections of industrial-grade silicone, the very same substance used as a lubricant for automotive parts. Back in 2003, Priscilla became the unfortunate star of one of the most bizarre and tragic Hollywood horror stories imaginable. She placed her trust in a fraudulent doctor to maintain her famously beautiful appearance. This was far more sinister than a simple back alley spa treatment. The man was Daniel Serrano, a charming con artist who injected her face with materials that belonged on the shelves of a hardware store, not in a human body. The horrifying results were immediate. Her cheeks became unnaturally swollen, her facial features were distorted, and her once legendary face was transformed into a walking warning against cutting corners on cosmetic injectables. And the nightmare didn't end there. By 2008, Serrano was finally brought to justice and sentenced to an 18-month prison term, hardly the credential you'd want from your cosmetic specialist. Priscilla underwent multiple corrective surgeries, but the damage inflicted was profound. Her once delicate features took on a waxy, unnatural appearance with puffy proportions that caused onlookers to gasp, not in admiration, but in sheer bewilderment. The tabloid headlines that followed were merciless. On social media, commenters cruelly compared her face to a haunted mask, proving that compassion often disappears when a cosmetic procedure goes awry. Yet it would be a mistake to underestimate Priscilla Presley. Beneath the fillers and the public criticism is a woman with a will of iron. She did more than just endure the scandal. She flourished in spite of it. Expertly managing the vast Elvis Presley estate, continuing her acting career and building a personal empire valued at $50 million. She accomplished all of this while facing the tabloid frenzy with unwavering grace and a signature bold red lipstick. By 2022, she was once again a fixture on red carpets, radiating a powerful presence, even though her face now told a very different story from the one etched in public memory. Today, Priscilla Presley serves as a living embodiment of the fact that Hollywood's intense obsession with youth is a treacherous and slippery slope. This is particularly true when dangerous substances like industrial silicone are part of the equation. Her experience is a sobering lesson for anyone in the pursuit of timeless beauty. It's a stark reminder not to lose the very essence of what made you unique and timeless to begin with. Next, we have Joan Rivers, the undisputed cosmetic queen of comedy. This trailblazing woman didn't just shatter glass ceilings, she probably had them Botoxed before she broke through. With a microphone clutched in one hand and a receipt from her plastic surgeon in the other, Joan brazenly transformed her own face into both a recurring punchline and a bold political statement on beauty standards. Her guiding principle was simple: if your reflection bothers you, change it. And if anyone had a problem with your changes, you unleash your sharp wit on them before they could even think of landing a punchline. At one point, she proudly boasted of undergoing more than 700 cosmetic enhancements. Let that sink in. That's not a misprint. It's the actual number. Think about every procedure, imaginable lifts, tucks, plumps, injections. She did it all. Her face became a constantly evolving masterpiece, getting more frequent updates than the latest smartphone software. To say the transformation was dramatic would be a massive understatement. The once sharp, incredibly expressive features that defined her began to morph slowly, taking on the smooth, almost doll-like quality of polished porcelain. Endless lifts pulled her eyes into a permanent squint. Her lips swelled to nearly comical proportions, and her skin was pulled so taut that she famously quipped she risked hearing a snap every time she tried to grin. Yet Joan was far from out of touch. She was the one writing the punchlines, always getting ahead of the joke by mercilessly roasting herself before the critics had a chance. "I've gone under the knife so many times," she famously joked, "that when I finally kick the bucket, they're going to donate my body to Tupperware." This was her ultimate weapon, controlling her own story in a city notorious for tearing women down as they get older. However, her constant procedures inevitably came with a price. The critics were ruthless medical experts, visibly winced, and soon her physical appearance became just as much a topic of public fascination as her legendary zingers. While many applauded her incredible candour, a significant portion of the public found it impossible to see beyond the perpetually startled expression etched onto her face. Her relentless quest for physical perfection was always a high-stakes game, and in a devastating twist of fate, she passed away in 2014 from complications during a minor routine throat surgery. No one missed the tragic irony of the situation. A woman who had bravely endured countless cosmetic procedures was ultimately brought down by something considered completely mundane. But this is the crucial point Joan never once claimed to be au naturel. She was brilliantly unfiltered genuine and possessed a comedic fire that no anti-aging serum could ever hope to duplicate. Her facial features might have been tightened and tucked, but her indomitable spirit remained fiercely, gloriously untamed. Next, we have Caitlyn Jenner, a story of Olympic glory, the immense weight of Hollywood expectations, and a significant number of cosmetic alterations. Long before the world knew her as Caitlyn, she was Bruce, the celebrated decathlete who brought home Olympic gold with a chiseled jawline that looked divinely sculpted and a spot on the Wheaties box to cement his status. He was the very picture of all-American manhood. But jump ahead several decades, throw in the whirlwind of about 5 Kardashians, and the picture changes dramatically. And the result is Caitlyn Jenner, a reality television phenomenon, a trailblazing icon for the transgender community, and indeed a very familiar face at the plastic surgeon's office. It's important to note that Caitlyn's relationship with cosmetic procedures began well before she shared her transition with the world. Back in the 1980s, Bruce experimented with a rhinoplasty and a facelift, likely aiming for a more youthful look, but ending up with a result that felt less refreshed and more uncomfortably taut, as if he'd just faced a gale force wind. This marked the start of a protracted and sometimes difficult path of redefining herself through surgery. Then, after publicly announcing her identity as a transgender woman in 2015, Caitlyn re-emerged into the full glare of the public eye. This time, however, every single curve and line of her face was subjected to intense, unrelenting scrutiny. Both supporters and detractors endlessly debated the possibility of brow lifts, jaw contouring, and a constant stream of Botox injections. Her look became as fiercely contested in public forums as her political views. But through the entire storm of opinions, Caitlyn held steadfastly to her personal journey. Could one argue that some of the procedures were a bit excessive? Absolutely. Did her eyebrows occasionally seem to be defying gravity perched high on her forehead? It's certainly possible. Nevertheless, Caitlyn remained completely undeterred, continuing on her path, because for her, this transformation was never about simple vanity. It was about being seen for who she truly was. At this point, she has weathered just as much backlash for her appearance as she has for her controversial public statements. And though her face has undeniably been altered, her core resilience remains completely intact. You can still find her gracing red carpets, delivering speeches at various events, and of course periodically igniting fiery discussions across social media platforms. Ultimately, Caitlyn Jenner's narrative is not just a tale of cosmetic procedures gone awry. It's a powerful chronicle of what it takes to reconstruct one's identity, both physically and emotionally, while living under the most intense public scrutiny imaginable. Her features may appear taut, but the message she sends to the world is authentically and uncompromisingly her own. And now for Sharon Stone. Her story is one where Hollywood glamour collides with an unexpected surgical shock. In the film Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone turned the simple act of crossing her legs into an iconic and dangerous cinematic moment. She embodied a persona that was frigidly cool, powerfully alluring and unforgettable, the absolute definition of a Hollywood deity. But as it turns out, not even goddesses are immune to a surgeon's knife, particularly when the procedure is one they never consented to. Back in 2001, during an operation to remove benign tumours, Sharon awoke from anaesthesia to discover a startling alteration. The surgeon, on his own initiative, had given her larger breast implants. This was done completely without her permission or knowledge beforehand. His justification was that the larger size would be more in proportion with her hips, a bizarre rationale. But this shocking tale of medical overreach was far from the end of her journey. Following a debilitating stroke and a terrifying 9-day-long brain hemorrhage, Sharon was forced to receive more than 300 injections of Botox and fillers just to regain control of her paralysed facial muscles. In this context, these cosmetic interventions were no longer a matter of vanity or luxury. They were a critical component of her recovery and survival. She even experimented with lip injections for a time, but later confessed the results were less than ideal, wryly comparing her appearance to that of a trout. And frankly, looking at the photos, she wasn't wrong. This experience was part of a larger realisation for Sharon. The endless chase for cosmetic perfection simply wasn't worth the emotional and physical cost. She began turning down offers for facelifts and refusing Botox injections. In a powerful move, she decided to embrace the ageing process, gracefully welcoming her wrinkles as part of her own story. Today, at 67 years old, Sharon Stone remains utterly luminous, courageously outspoken and completely mesmerising. Her face may no longer fit the rigid mould of Hollywood perfection, but it narrates a tale of resilience and depth that far surpasses anything a sensationalist tabloid could ever print. The lesson from Sharon's experience is unmistakable. True beauty isn't found in perfect symmetry. It's forged in survival, fortified by strength, and demonstrated by having the courage to reject a surgeon who wields a scalpel with a god complex. Tara Reid. At the dawn of the new millennium, she was the quintessential girl next door who seemed to have the entire world at her feet before a series of surgical procedures sent her career spiralling. She embodied that laid-back, sun-drenched California vibe with a radiant smile that practically screamed she was the life of every party you wished you were at. Fresh off her unforgettable role in American Pie, she quickly became the icon of early 2000s appeal, but then a decision to go under the knife changed everything. It was in 2004 that Tara decided on what many in Hollywood considered a standard tune-up breast, implants and liposuction, aiming for that next-level look. Unfortunately, the outcome was far from the enhancement she'd hoped for. It was more of a catastrophic system failure. The procedures left her with asymmetrical breasts and scarring, while the liposuction on her abdomen resulted in a rippled texture and even caused a painful hernia. The devastating truth was revealed to the world in the most public way imaginable: a wardrobe malfunction on a red carpet. In an era just before going viral was common vocabulary, the shocking photograph spread like wildfire. In an instant, she was transformed from a beloved star into the butt of countless jokes. Her body became a subject of public scrutiny and ridicule no longer her own. In 2006, she underwent corrective procedures in an attempt to repair the physical damage. While there were improvements, that effortless radiance she was known for proved incredibly difficult to get back. Her fan base also began to observe that her once vibrant face appeared increasingly taut and unnaturally altered, fueling widespread speculation about fillers and Botox that felt as wild as one of her future movie plots. The critics were merciless, and the burgeoning online communities, true to form, were even harsher in their judgment. Consequently, major acting opportunities became scarce, and she found herself defined more by her surgical misfortunes than by the talent that had initially made her famous. But this is the part of the story that truly matters. Tara refused to vanish from the spotlight. She continued to work to persevere and eventually began to speak candidly about her painful experiences. She openly acknowledged that the procedures had inflicted deep wounds on her professional life, her self-esteem, and her fundamental identity. Through it all, she embarked on the difficult journey of learning to embrace herself once more, even with the visible and invisible scars that remained. Today, at 49 years old, Tara Reid remains a fixture on the red carpet, smiling and dressing with defiance and joy. She stands as a powerful testament to the fact that genuine self-assurance is far more captivating than any manufactured ideal of perfection. Jennifer Grey and the rhinoplasty that effectively made a beloved celebrity disappear from public view. Back in the 1980s, Jennifer Grey was far more than just the star of Dirty Dancing. She was baby and icon with a mane of untamed curls, expressive eyes, and a uniquely charming nose that set her apart. Her appeal was authentic and impossible to replicate. She was refreshingly different from the cookie-cutter starlets of the era. That distinctiveness was precisely why audiences adored her. But then came the insidious industry pressure, the constant suggestion to fix her nose. Eventually, she gave in. In the early 1990s, Jennifer had two separate rhinoplasty procedures. The initial surgery was intended for a subtle refinement, and the subsequent one was needed to correct issues from the first. But no amount of surgical planning could have braced her for the consequences. While the operation technically perfected her profile, it completely stripped away the very feature that made her face so memorable. Suddenly, audiences couldn't place her. Casting directors looked right through her, no longer seeing the star they once knew. As Jennifer herself famously put it, "I went into the operating room a celebrity and came out anonymous." This wasn't a minor adjustment. It was as if she'd inadvertently hit a catastrophic reset button on her entire career. The public response was swift and unforgiving. Tabloid magazines relentlessly picked apart her new appearance, turning her personal decision into a public spectacle. Her devoted fans genuinely grieved the loss of the old Jennifer. While her face was new, the world seemed utterly incapable of looking beyond the features she had left behind. She later confessed that the decision was the single greatest regret of her life. Yet Jennifer Grey refused to be erased. She began the long process of reclaiming her narrative both on and off the dance floor. She took on smaller roles before making a triumphant return to the spotlight on Dancing with the Stars, demonstrating to everyone that her incredible spirit and talent could never be altered by a scalpel. Today at 65, Jennifer Grey's brilliance emanates not from a surgically perfected face, but from the immense strength and resilience she has shown the world. She has recounted her story with remarkable honesty and wit, teaching a valuable lesson in the relentless pursuit of perfection. She lost a part of herself only to find something far more profound, in its place her true self. Ultimately, the takeaway from her story has very little to do with a nose job. It's a powerful lesson about the wisdom of knowing what to change about yourself and the courage to cherish what makes you unique. Which brings us to Katie Price's story of Barbie aspirations and surgical horror. If a television network were to create a show called Extreme Makeover: The Life Story Edition, there is no doubt that Katie Price would be its reigning queen. First emerging in British pop culture as Jordan during the late 90s, she made an unforgettable entrance with her voluminous hair and even more larger-than-life personality and a famously ever-expanding chest. Her entire aesthetic was daring and brazen, and she proudly embraced an artificial look. For a long time, that strategy was incredibly successful until it catastrophically wasn't. Katie's initial breast enhancement surgery took her from a relatively modest 32B to a size 32C, which was much more likely to grab headlines. But that was merely the opening act. In the 2 decades that followed, she would accumulate an absolutely mind-boggling list of cosmetic procedures. The list includes an astonishing 17 breast operations, 6 facelifts, numerous rounds of liposuction, Brazilian butt lifts, and a seemingly endless supply of fillers and Botox injections. By the time the 2010s arrived, Katie's quest was no longer about simple modifications. She was engaged in an all-out war against the natural aging process itself. And that's when things took a dangerous turn. In 2015, a poorly executed breast reduction resulted in a severe and dangerous infection. Then, in 2020, another breast enhancement procedure went horribly wrong, requiring her to be rushed into emergency surgery to correct the life-threatening complications. Perhaps the most harrowing ordeal occurred in 2026, when a $10,000 facelift performed in Turkey left her horrifically swollen, covered in bruises, and with her vision severely impaired. She has confessed, "There are moments when I look at my reflection and I genuinely question if people perceive me as beautiful anymore or if they just see a plastic doll." Online, the public commentary has been brutal and unrelenting, with many critics comparing her ever-changing features to those of a warped children's doll. The online backlash was absolutely merciless, with countless commenters likening her progressively altered features to those of a Bratz doll. Some observers diagnose it as a severe case of body dysmorphia playing out in public. Those closest to her, including her own medical advisors, have sounded the alarm, cautioning that this relentless pursuit of surgical perfection is not just risky, but potentially fatal. Yet Katie shows no signs of hitting the brakes. Now, at 47 years old, her schedule for 2026 is already packed with an additional 6 cosmetic procedures featuring elf-like ear reshaping and another round of buttock enhancements. When questioned about her motivations, her response is straightforward. She is on a quest to become her ultimate self. And if achieving that ideal self requires going under the knife, she's completely at peace with that. The narrative of Katie's life is a poignant mix of profound sorrow and incredible fortitude. She is refreshingly open about her past misgivings, going so far as to confess she regrets ever having that first operation at the age of 18. However, rather than retreating from the public eye, she confronts the criticism head-on, standing firm against a wave of public opinion. Through all the visible evidence, the scars, the post-op inflammation, the silicone implants, she continues to put herself out there unapologetically. Let's talk Gwyneth Paltrow, a tale of goop glamour and a cosmetic filler that went horribly wrong. Yes, Gwyneth, a true Hollywood icon, the Oscar winner for Shakespeare in Love, and the high priestess of the wellness empire known as Goop. She's also the very same woman who famously encouraged people to steam their most private areas and purchase $75 candles with a scent that, well, let's just say it's infamous. Gwyneth Paltrow has consistently followed her own unique rhythm, a beat that is impeccably exfoliated and certified organic. However, it seems that even the reigning monarch of all natural living found herself unable to completely ignore the allure of cosmetic enhancements. For a long time, she captivated audiences with an innate sophistication characterised by her flowing blonde hair, a brilliant smile, and that signature effortless radiance that seemed to scream, "My diet consists solely of fermented greens." Then, somewhere during the 2010s, eagle-eyed followers started to observe that her features were becoming unnaturally free of lines. Her forehead appeared taut, her cheeks looked fuller, and her eyebrows seemed to arch higher than the price tags on her website. The speculation started immediately. Was it Botox fillers? Or perhaps a subtle facelift? While Gwyneth consistently refuted claims of any major surgical procedures, she did confess to experimenting with less invasive cosmetic options. This included one specific injectable treatment that, as she herself described it, left her looking like a crazy person. Predictably, the internet went into overdrive, producing a flood of screenshots, comparative photos, and enough gossip to fill an entire edition of a Goop newsletter. She later revealed on a podcast that a botched filler injection had left her face looking warped and had deeply rattled her self-esteem. This was an uncommon display of vulnerability from the celebrity, typically known for promoting yoni eggs and advocating for bone broth detoxes. It goes to show that even the chief oracle of holistic wellness in Hollywood can fall victim to a poorly administered injection. Comparative photographs of her appearance from before and after the procedure circulated across the web at lightning speed. A segment of her fan base expressed disappointment, arguing that she had sacrificed the subtle allure that had previously been her signature. Many others were unfazed, pointing out that someone like Gwyneth is under immense pressure to maintain a certain image, particularly when that image is tied to selling skincare products that claim to offer everlasting youth. But then the story took an interesting turn. Gwyneth completely changed her strategy. She now champions the virtues of authentic beauty, recommending gentle laser treatments and skincare routines derived from plants. Her public persona transformed from someone trying to freeze time to someone embracing graceful aging while also being incredibly wealthy. Lately, her signature radiance has returned. She looks less like a robotic Hollywood creation and more like a tranquil spiritual guide residing in Napa Valley. Now, at 52 years old, Gwyneth Paltrow serves as living proof that even the most meticulously planned wellness lifestyle can encounter an unexpected setback or a bad Botox injection. Yet, in her characteristic fashion, she skillfully converted the experience into marketable content and profited from it. And she emerged from the whole ordeal looking as refreshed and mystical as if she had just performed a ritual involving moon water during a lunar eclipse. And now for Eva Mendes, a journey from cinematic bombshell to a skincare venture that took a bit of a wrong turn. As the quintessential icon of Latina glamour in Hollywood, Eva Mendes seemed to possess every desirable trait: luminous skin, prominent cheekbones, and a captivating smile that could persuade anyone to buy anything. She could even make a romantic comedy with a weak script a box office hit. From her roles in films like Training Day to Hitch, Eva's presence wasn't just illuminating, it was absolutely incendiary. Then she partook in what has become a favourite Hollywood pastime for those hitting middle age, the cosmetic enhancement. Around 2020, her followers began to sense a change. Her cheeks appeared tighter, her forehead was exceptionally smooth, and her eyebrows were fixed in a high arch, giving her a look of perpetual slight astonishment. The rumours began to fly, with speculation pointing to Botox fillers and possibly even a subtle facelift. However, Eva, maintaining her composed demeanour, tackled the rumours not through a publicist's statement, but with a startling Instagram post showcasing 6 needles inserted beneath her chin for a procedure known as monothreading therapy. It was a treatment designed to stimulate collagen that looked less like modern skincare and more like a form of ancient, slightly terrifying acupuncture. Her followers, understandably, were shocked. "Is that really Eva?" they wondered in the comments. "Or is this just a bizarre social media filter?" Her social media was inundated with comments from people asking if the star, once celebrated for her natural look, had finally succumbed to the overdone, expressionless aesthetic of some of her Hollywood peers. Then, in 2024, Eva broke her silence on the matter. She confessed to having regrets about using Botox, specifically criticising the unnatural, constricting feeling it left behind. "There are times I wish I hadn't done it, and then you're just stuck waiting for it to wear off," she explained with the kind of nonchalant shrug that only a seasoned Hollywood star can pull off. In the meantime, plastic surgeons began offering their unsolicited opinions, much like backseat drivers pointing out that monothreading was far from the ideal treatment for tightening the neck. What a misstep. The circulating before and after pictures certainly didn't do her any favours, revealing how her once warm and gentle features had been chiselled into a much sharper, almost statuesque appearance. While some labelled the change a personal evolution, others deemed it a cosmetic tragedy. Regardless of the label, the online world had plenty of opinions to share. But this is the part of the story where Eva rewrites her own narrative. She took a significant step back from the limelight, choosing to concentrate on her family with her partner, Ryan Gosling. That's right, the Ryan Gosling. She also successfully introduced her own lifestyle company. She never disowned her past decisions. She simply moved forward with her life. Then, in a 2026 Instagram post, she delivered a powerful message stating, "Thank goodness I'm getting older. It's proof that I'm still alive and kicking." Now, at 51, Eva Mendes has stopped pursuing flawlessness and is simply seeking equilibrium. She takes risks, feels regret and laughs about it, and then she continues on. Her journey is not a cautionary tale of downfall. It is a story of personal growth, which happens to include a few interesting cosmetic detours along the way. Because when it comes down to it, embracing your humanity is far more compelling than achieving an impossible standard of perfection, especially when you do it all in a great pair of heels. And now, Simon Cowell, the man whose expressions have inspired an entire generation of internet jokes. Let's travel back to the early 2000s when Simon Cowell was the notoriously sarcastic, sharp-featured Brit who could shatter a contestant's dreams on American Idol with a single arch of his brow. His whole identity was built on savage honesty, his trademark black t-shirts and that smug, yet somehow captivating grin. But as the years ticked by, a very strange transformation began to take place. Simon's face started to appear softer, more wrinkle-free and noticeably fuller. By the end of the 2010s, observant viewers began to notice that the man known as Mr. Brutal Truth was sporting a suspiciously vacant look with cheeks that seemed overinflated and a forehead that looked completely frozen in place. His smile seemed permanently fixed in an odd expression, somewhere between a cartoon supervillain and a ventriloquist puppet. The cause, a $2,000 silhouette soft facelift, copious amounts of Botox, an abundance of fillers, and maybe a little too much wishful thinking. In 2022, following a particularly artificial-looking appearance on Britain's Got Talent, the fan base absolutely erupted. On Twitter, people dubbed him AI Simon. Others made comparisons to a wax statue that had been left a bit too close to a radiator. Reportedly, even his own son, Eric, started laughing because he genuinely couldn't recognise his own dad's face. Ouch. Eventually, Simon himself conceded that he had taken things way too far. He once mentioned that a particular Botox session left him looking so terrifying that he could have been cast as the antagonist in a major horror film. Cosmetic surgeons added their professional opinions, identifying his look as a textbook case of pillow face, which happens when fillers are overused and make you look puffy like a marshmallow in designer clothing. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Simon actually paid attention. It's been reported that he gave up Botox and fillers entirely in 2022, opting instead for the classic remedies of fresh vegetables, plenty of water and regular cardio. After a frightening bicycle accident and losing 30 pounds, he swapped the needle for a diet of spinach and an exercise routine of sit-ups. At 65, Simon still possesses the wealth, the media franchises and his famous hair. He can even make jokes about his own physical evolution, telling the Mirror newspaper that he thinks the internet memes about his plastic surgery are absolutely hilarious. And truthfully, that powerful self-awareness might just be the most effective lift he has ever received. Simon Cowell's entire saga is a masterclass in irony. The very man who earned millions by critiquing the appearance of others was ultimately unable to shield himself from the very same public judgment. Next up, Ryan Gosling, from being compared to a Ken doll to seemingly becoming a real one. Ryan Gosling, Hollywood's long-reigning golden boy and the certified heartthrob of movies like La La Land and The Notebook, has always possessed a face that looked like it was sculpted by angels, or at minimum, by an incredibly talented lighting director. With his strong, jawline, soulful eyes and that signature smirk that became an internet sensation, Ryan projected a kind of handsomeness that made both romantic comedy fans and indie film aficionados completely swoon. Starting around the year 2020, fans with a keen eye started to notice that Gosling's characteristic ruggedness was beginning to look suspiciously smooth. The fine lines were gone. His boyish squint had been replaced with an unnervingly fixed stare. The dimples were still present, but they were now on a face that seemed just a bit too flawless. The widespread speculation, as you might guess, centred on Botox fillers and maybe even a subtle rhinoplasty. Social media went into a frenzy, posting side-by-side images of early career Gosling and Barbie. Gosling asking the crucial question, did Ryan literally turn himself into Ken? Industry experts chimed in, highlighting the subtle evidence of cheek fillers. Much smoother skin and that unmistakable tautness across the brow that practically screams, I have not made a genuine facial expression in many months. At various red carpet premieres, some attendees even remarked that he looked like a wax figure, although an exceptionally expensive and attractive one. Ryan, in his usual manner, has remained completely silent on the subject. There have been no denials and no confirmations, only a couple of vague remarks about living a healthy lifestyle and finding balance. Which, if you speak Hollywood, roughly translates to, yes, I have an excellent dermatologist on speed dial. Still, in a 2024 GQ interview, Ryan did imply that his attention is more on professional longevity than on pure vanity. He brought up things like diet, sleep, and the struggle to remain sane in a business that often regards actors in their 40s as ancient relics. And let's be honest, if that involves a little cosmetic enhancement here or a small lift there, who are we to criticise? Now, at the age of 44, Ryan Gosling is still one of the most profitable and adored stars in the industry. Perhaps his appearance has altered a bit. Maybe it can be attributed to lighting, maybe it's the result of filler, but he still has the charm, the incredible talent and the professional ability to cry on demand. And frankly, what more could we really want? Whether he's the gritty Gosling from Drive or the polished Gosling from Barbie, the man consistently makes his audience feel something profound. And that is a form of magic that no cosmetic needle can ever truly create. Now on to Renee Zellweger. Back when Bridget Jones was a constant presence in our lives, Renee Zellweger was the ultimate icon of the charmingly imperfect woman. Her full cheeks, a squinty kind of smile, and an endearing awkwardness made Bridget Jones feel like a reflection of all of us after a few too many glasses of wine and a poorly thought out text message. She was the opposite of Hollywood perfection, and that was precisely the reason we found her so endearing. But then the year 2014 arrived, and with it came a red carpet appearance that caused everyone to do a double take and then a triple take, asking themselves, wait a minute, is that really Renee? Her facial features appeared more refined. Her eyes seemed noticeably larger, and her cheeks had lost that signature Bridget Jones roundness, replaced by a sculpted Beverly Hills aesthetic. In an instant, the internet went into a complete frenzy, spawning a tidal wave of memes. Major news outlets ran sensational headlines, all screaming the same thing: she was completely unrecognizable. In a flash, an actress celebrated for her down-to-earth appeal had become someone the public struggled to even identify. In response to the uproar, Renee flatly denied any surgical intervention. She claimed her new look was simply the result of a profound lifestyle change, insisting she was living a happier, more peaceful and deeply fulfilling existence. And while that's a wonderful sentiment, let's be realistic, eyebrows don't just defy gravity on their own. Experts in the field of cosmetic surgery began weighing in, with widespread speculation pointing towards procedures like blepharoplasty, strategic Botox injections, and dermal fillers. They noted that although her complexion was undeniably smooth and line-free, this apparent perfection seemed to have erased the unique and beloved features that defined her on-screen persona. Her devoted fan base openly grieved for the Renee they knew and loved the quirky, charming woman who could navigate romantic disasters and enjoy comfort food while wrapped in a giant cozy sweater. Yet, in a move that caught everyone off guard, Renee didn't retreat from the spotlight. Instead, she orchestrated a quiet and gradual return, re-emerging with powerful roles in projects like Bridget Jones's Baby, The Gripping series, The Thing About Pam, and ultimately performances that earned her another Academy Award. Her portrayal of Judy Garland was nothing short of a stunning triumph. Gradually, the tabloid chatter died down and the public outrage subsided. In the end, her incredible talent, her true artistry resonated far more powerfully than any discussion about a smooth forehead or absent smile lines ever could. Now, at 56 years of age, Renee appears to have embraced a more authentic version of herself. She frequently speaks on the importance of self-acceptance, tuning out the relentless criticism and discovering a sense of confidence that isn't tied to physical appearance. Her latest public outings reveal a woman who has clearly found her equilibrium. She remains radiant and impeccably dressed, but she seems to have gracefully stepped away from the intense pressure to conform to Hollywood's ever-escalating surgical standards. Her journey serves as a compelling and cautionary final chapter in this overarching Hollywood narrative of extreme cosmetic enhancements. It seems that in the frantic pursuit of a standardized ideal of beauty, we often lose sight of the very imperfections and unique qualities that made someone truly memorable in the first place. Let's turn to Jocelyn Wildenstein, a woman famously dubbed Catwoman, who perhaps took the concept of having 9 lives a little too literally. The tabloids branded her Catwoman. But to be perfectly clear, we aren't talking about the sleek superhero version played by Halle Berry. Jocelyn Wildenstein is a Swiss-born socialite whose surgically enhanced cheekbones are so pronounced they look like they could double as cutlery, and she possesses one of the most notoriously altered faces in the entire history of plastic surgery. So what sparked this unbelievable transformation? It all began with love, or more accurately, an obsession tinged with a distinct feline flavour. Decades ago, Jocelyn was the wife of billionaire art mogul Alec Wildenstein, a man with a deep fascination for large wild cats. Now, a typical partner might buy a leopard print scarf or perhaps make a donation to a wildlife preserve in his name. But not Jocelyn. She committed completely undertaking a radical series of surgeries to remodel her own face into a living homage to her husband's feral passion. She endured multiple facelifts, countless lip injections, and repeated eyelid reconstructions. If you can name a cosmetic procedure, chances are she's had it done not just once, but relentlessly. The final outcome was a visage that bore a stronger resemblance to something you'd find in the Amazon than on the chic streets of Geneva. With her cheekbones ascending ever closer to her hairline and her eyes taking on an intensely predatory slant, the media went into a feeding frenzy. Sensational headlines screamed from the newsstands, and a fresh wave of internet memes flooded social media. Through it all, Jocelyn maintained that her appearance was simply a reflection of her natural Swiss genetics, a claim that was met with universal scepticism. And then, inevitably, came the ferocious legal battle, her divorce. Not only did her husband leave her, but Jocelyn later alleged that he actively conspired to ruin her reputation in the public eye. She claimed he hired both unscrupulous surgeons and public relations experts with the specific goal of framing her surgical journey as a grotesque tabloid horror story. After spending millions of dollars and eventually filing for bankruptcy, Jocelyn's tale reads less like a Cinderella story and more like a cautionary fable for the ultra-rich. Still, you have to acknowledge her tenacity. She went to extreme lengths for love, remained fiercely dedicated to her vision, and absolutely never retracted her claws. Next up, Amanda Lepore, the woman behind the $1 million metamorphosis. If physical beauty came with an itemised bill, Amanda Lepore settled her account a long time ago and paid a hefty amount in interest. Born with the name Armand and relentlessly tormented for feeling profoundly out of place in her own body, Amanda's journey wasn't merely a transition. It was a complete reinvention akin to a blockbuster movie franchise rebooted with an unlimited production budget. Imagine the classic glamour of Marilyn Monroe fused with a sci-fi fantasy backed by a mountain of medical invoices. After investing well over $1 million into her body, Amanda's face is a work of sculptural art, and her waistline has been dramatically narrowed through rib removal surgery. Her hips have been augmented to create an exaggerated hourglass figure, cementing her status as a true visual icon. Her list of procedures includes brow lifts, cheek implants, several rhinoplasties, breast augmentations, and silicone injections in areas you wouldn't even think possible. And yes, she's had numerous other surgeries to meticulously perfect well every single part of her. Detractors label her look as shockingly extreme, but Amanda herself defines it as a form of personal empowerment served with a generous helping of glamour. She has never been interested in following fleeting beauty trends. Instead, she is shattering them. Her radical transformation certainly caused a stir, and not just because of her surgically lifted eyebrows, but in doing so, she has become a living testament to the principles of bodily autonomy and fearless ambition. Does it involve significant risk? Without a doubt. But is it an authentic expression of who she is? Completely and unapologetically, Amanda isn't seeking anyone's validation. Her mission is to be visible, to ignite dialogue, and to send a powerful message: your body, your choice. Just make sure you enlist the help of a supremely talented and reputable surgeon. And now for Cardi B, the undisputed queen of speaking her mind, especially when it comes to her cosmetic procedures. With 5 Grammy Awards to her name, Cardi B possesses a wit as sharp as her lyrics. But what truly distinguishes her from other celebrities? It's her raw, unfiltered honesty about the world of plastic surgery, discussing the successful outcomes, the regrettable ones, and even the downright dangerous procedures. In an industry where most stars evade any questions about cosmetic work, Cardi practically grabs the microphone to share all the details, holding nothing back. She famously admitted to once getting butt injections in someone's basement for a mere $800 a procedure that used dangerous biopolymer fillers. And here's a major spoiler alert: it was a terrible decision. These substances weren't just unregulated and illegal for cosmetic use, they were incredibly hazardous and could have been fatal. Cardi later shared that she underwent surgery to have the fillers removed, describing the entire ordeal as a complete nightmare and publicly pleading with her followers to never ever make the same mistake. But let's be crystal clear, she's not against going under the knife. Cardi has been completely upfront about getting a nose job and firmly believes that if you're unhappy with something, you have every right to modify it. Her underlying message is quite direct: live your life for yourself, but ensure you're making intelligent choices along the way. This means no back alley clinics, no unidentified injectable substances, and absolutely no discount cosmetic procedures. Cardi's level of honesty is as unfiltered as her music. She is the ultimate evidence that you can be powerful, stunning, and still be totally transparent about your cosmetic journey. Because in Cardi's world, the only thing that might be synthetic is the weave. And even that is styled to absolute perfection. Next, we have Katie Price, the British glamour model who practically built an empire on cosmetic enhancements. When it comes to physical alterations, Katie Price doesn't just make a change. She undergoes a metamorphosis that rivals a comic book character with a deep-seated addiction to surgery. Originally a youthful model who went by the name Jordan Katie has since transformed into a figure she proudly labels as completely artificial. And trust us, that is not an exaggeration. Throughout her career, Katie has undergone so many different operations that it's nearly impossible to keep them all straight. Breast augmentations, she's stopped counting, rhinoplasties, lip injections, facelifts, dental veneers, Botox, if you can name the procedure, she has likely had it upgraded. Her chest alone has experienced more dramatic shifts in size and volume than the entire stock market on a volatile day. Her most recent implants are said to weigh approximately 2 kilograms each. That is the equivalent of carrying a medium-sized watermelon on either side of your body. Medical experts are now raising serious alarms. Those incredibly large implants that seem to defy gravity could pose a serious threat to her physical well-being. Her spine is under immense strain, but Katie remains utterly unfazed, walking into another surgical consultation as casually as most people head out for a weekend coffee. Unapologetic, glamorous, and propelled by an unending mission to reinvent herself. Is it extreme, perhaps? Is it legendary? Absolutely. Katie Price is tangible proof that in our current culture of Instagram, perfection, and on-demand fillers, some people don't just follow beauty trends, they physically become them. One exorbitant surgical bill at a time. Hailing from Russia with a tale of profound regret, we have the story of a beauty queen who lost the ability to blink. Yulia Tarasevich was once considered Russia's version of a classic Hollywood star. She was breathtaking, elegant, with a kind of beauty that could halt traffic or potentially ignite an international incident. But in her quest to halt the natural progression of time, she found herself starring in a real-life horror film of her own creation. And here's a spoiler, a happy resolution is not yet in sight. At 46 years old, Yulia wasn't merely chasing vanity, she was just looking for a minor refresh. The plan involved a facelift, an eyelid adjustment, and a bit of minor liposuction. A nip here, a tuck there. It sounded simple enough, didn't it? It was anything but. What she received instead was debilitating swelling, deep, uneven scars, and the most terrifying outcome of all, she could no longer close her eyes. Yes, you heard that correctly. Sleep became a near impossibility and blinking a forgotten luxury. Try to imagine attempting to flirt while your expression is permanently fixed in a state of alarm. Firmly resolved to find justice and likely desperate for a peaceful night of rest, Yulia initiated a lawsuit against her surgeons. Dr. Andrei Komarov and Dr. Omar Khaled defended their actions by blaming a rare genetic condition called scleroderma. Yulia, however, strongly refuted their claim. She had no history of it, had never even heard of it, and demanded a better explanation. Now confronting a monumental challenge with both her physical recovery and the legal system, Yulia's story serves as a powerful and chilling warning. When you consider cosmetic surgery, it is imperative to know exactly who is performing the procedure and maybe confirm they have a successful history with human patients. Now let's discuss Lin May, who went from a Latin icon to a tragic example of cosmetic misadventure. Back in the vibrant 1970s of Mexico, Lin May was the ultimate captivating star. Imagine Jennifer Lopez with a heavy dose of disco flair. She danced with incredible skill, she captivated audiences, and she was the centre of attention everywhere she appeared. But as the years began to pass, Lin chose not to age naturally. She launched a full-scale battle against the forces of gravity, but gravity ultimately struck back with devastating consequences. Troubled by minor facial imperfections and the overwhelming need to remain eternally perfect, Lynn put her trust in someone she believed was a miracle solution. It turns out this person was an unlicensed practitioner who injected her face with commercial baby oil, the very same product used for diaper rash. That isn't a cosmetic procedure, it's the beginning of a nightmare. The outcome was utterly catastrophic. Her signature cheekbones swelled to grotesque proportions, infections developed, and her once revered appearance became a source of tabloid mockery. Through the years, various efforts to undo the damage only compounded the problem, much like trying to extinguish a fire by adding more fuel. Now well into her 70s, Lynn is not hiding from the world. She has shared her ordeal with the public, warning people not to allow fear or a deceptive practitioner with a bargain offer to coerce them into making irreversible mistakes. Her physical appearance may have been altered, but her spirit remains as resilient and vibrant as ever. And she continues to remind us all that if anyone ever offers to enhance your face with products from the baby aisle, it's far better to embrace aging with a good bottle of wine and a fast internet connection. Finally, we have the story of Carol Bryan, whose dreams of youthful skin turned into a horrifying cosmetic disaster. At the age of 47, Carol Bryan simply wanted a small refresh. She wasn't seeking fame, just a smoother forehead and a gentle, healthy glow. The sort of radiance you might expect from a luxury spa treatment, not something alarming or artificial. To that end, she opted for what she was told were perfectly safe dermal fillers. They were supposed to be harmless, but that promise was broken. Instead of a simple fountain of youth in a syringe, Carol was injected with a dangerous mixture of fillers that included permanent silicone. That's right, we're talking about the industrial-grade sealant you find in a hardware store, the kind used for caulking your shower, and it was shot directly into her facial tissue. Not long after, her face began to morph in a grotesque, slow-motion way, almost like a melting wax figure. Her brow ballooned outwards, her cheekbones turned rock solid, and the woman staring back at her from the mirror was a complete and utter stranger. Medical professionals attempted to intervene, but let's stress the word attempted. Their efforts were entirely fruitless, as nothing they did could reverse the damage. Carol became a recluse, shutting herself off from everyone she knew, with the sole exception of her own daughter. Her despair grew so profound that she found herself considering taking her own life. However, in the year 2013, she saw a glimmer of hope and reached out to a specialised craniofacial surgeon. The subsequent operation offered her a chance at a new life, but it came at a devastating cost: her eyesight. The procedure left her permanently blind in one eye. In the years that followed, she endured a series of skin grafts and reconstructive surgeries, painstakingly rebuilding her appearance bit by bit. Today, in her late 50s, Carol has transformed her tragedy into a powerful cautionary tale for the public. She bravely recounts her harrowing experience to serve as a stark warning that even seemingly small cosmetic procedures can lead to catastrophic and permanent damage. Introducing Tara Jane McConaughey. Hey Tara, it's Barbie on the line. She's asking for her look back. Let's talk about Tara Jane McConaughey, who bills herself as Australia's living doll. Imagine if Barbie decided she needed half a dozen rhinoplasties, 5 breast augmentations, and had a loyalty card that got stamped at every single plastic surgeon's office in the country. Having funneled more than 200,000 Australian dollars into her quest for synthetic perfection, Tara is doing more than just pursuing an ideal of beauty. She's in a full-blown high-heeled marathon to achieve it. Just imagine the scene. She confidently parades through the streets of Melbourne, decked out in imitation fur and tight leather, with a self-assurance level that's off the charts. Her presence makes people stare as if she's a major movie star and ignites arguments like a college debate team on espresso. Her features are meticulously sculpted and her body is a product of surgical engineering. And now she's just revealed her next big plan. She intends to augment her chest to an astonishing 1,500 cubic centimetres. Let's be clear, that isn't a measurement you find on a bra tag, it's a potential engineering problem. Medical experts have pleaded with her to halt the procedures, pointing to her dangerously low body mass and the escalating list of health complications. But what does Tara say? Keep going. While her critics scream that she's gone too far, she defines it as personal artistic expression. Why settle for subtlety when you can turn everything up to 11? Having appeared on television programmes like Botched and Mirror Mirror, Tara's transformation is more than just personal. It's become a living piece of social commentary. She treats her own body as her artistic medium, using silicone and sheer willpower as her tools. Does it raise eyebrows? Absolutely. Is it a form of empowerment? That's debatable. Is it memorable? Without a doubt. Tara's philosophy seems to be that the pursuit of beauty is a journey with no final destination, only a series of appointments. So if you happen to spot a platinum blonde in stilettos whose proportions seem to challenge the laws of physics, feel free to say hello. You might be looking at Tara, or perhaps a real-life special effect. Let's talk about Pete Burns, the musical icon who famously spun his way onto the pop charts and then directly into surgery. You'll undoubtedly remember Pete Burns for his legendary 80s hit, You Spin Me Round, but it wasn't his music career that went into a tailspin. It was his physical appearance. An initial, seemingly minor rhinoplasty snowballed into an epic and unending series of cosmetic operations. He underwent close to 300 distinct procedures, which is more surgeries than most people have dental checkups in their entire lifetime. Pete's goal was never about chasing youth. His ambition was to evolve into an individual who defied all conventional labels beyond gender, outside of age, and completely without fear. His face was effectively his artistic canvas, and he employed a parade of plastic surgeons as his artists, though their levels of talent varied dramatically. He inflated his lips, had his jawline reshaped, and modified nearly every feature he had, all in the pursuit of a unique identity. His look became totally non-binary, but his bank account was completely destroyed in the process. Even when faced with constant infections, disastrous surgical outcomes, and the desperate pleas of medical professionals to cease, Pete refused to stop. He proudly declared that he was a self-made work of art. However, creating such a unique masterpiece came with a very steep cost. The financial toll was immense, draining nearly his entire fortune, and ultimately in 2016 he tragically lost his life to a sudden cardiac arrest when he was just 57 years old. Now for Jordan James Park, who might just be the unofficial president of the Kim Kardashian fan club. They say that imitation is the highest compliment, but in this case, Kim Kardashian might want to consider getting a protective order. Allow me to introduce Jordan James Park, an influencer from the UK who has poured more than $170,000 into emulating the famous reality star, which includes his signature enormous lips, sharply defined cheekbones, a perfectly chiseled jaw, and an expression that screams, "This effortless look costs more than a down payment on a house." This entire odyssey started when he was just 17 years old, driven by a fascination with celebrity social media filters and a firm conviction that Kim K's face represented the pinnacle of aesthetic perfection. He's had his share of Botox, seemingly endless amounts of fillers, and more nose jobs than one can keep track of. While naysayers label it an obsession, Jordan feels like he's only just begun his transformation. He has gone so far as to contemplate having ribs removed to achieve an impossibly tiny waistline. Apparently things like lung capacity are secondary concerns. On one hand, there are those who praise his unwavering dedication to crafting his own identity. But on the other hand, many see him as the ultimate example of cosmetic culture run amok. Yet Jordan offers no apologies, insisting he is on a personal quest. A quest that seemingly involves remodelling his own face into a living tribute to his idol. Whether you admire him or criticise him, Jordan's story reflects a fascinating aspect of our modern times. An era that's defined by digital filters, a thirst for fame, and a relentless pursuit of an unattainable ideal achieved one syringe at a time. And then there's Heidi Montag, the television personality who discovered a painful truth. Sometimes the most expensive things in life are offered for free. As a star on the hills, Heidi Montag was known as the girl next door. With her blonde hair and cheerful demeanour, she was also just vulnerable enough to be lured in by a classic Hollywood temptation complementary cosmetic procedures. That is not a misprint. Heidi was presented with an offer that seemed far too good to ever turn down. Imagine undergoing 10 different cosmetic surgeries all packed into a grueling 16-hour session. You might call that a makeover, but for her it felt more like a surgical assault. She decided to get everything done in a single marathon procedure: a lift for her brows, a reshaping of her chin, Botox injections, and even fat grafting for volume. It was the surgical equivalent of ordering everything on the fast food menu. The fallout was predictable: immense pain, significant swelling, utter confusion, and a mental fog from painkillers so potent they could have sidelined a professional athlete. She was only 23 years old, just barely old enough to legally rent a vehicle, and was already committing to a complete facial reconstruction with the frantic urgency of a college student cramming for a final exam. The years that followed were a difficult journey marked by intense regret, deep soul-searching, and a very public and painful reckoning with her decisions. Heidi would later confess that she never actually needed any of it, not the operations, not the crippling self-doubt that fueled them, and especially not the supposedly free offer that set the whole thing in motion. It became painfully clear that the hidden cost of that supposed beauty deal was paid with extended recovery time, lasting trauma, and a reflection in the mirror that was forever altered. Let's talk about Neven Ciganovic, the man who went in for a nose job and came out with a whole lot more than he bargained for. Croatian reality television star Neven Ciganovic believed he was jetting off to Iran for an improved nose, but he wound up leaving with a completely unforeseen and bizarre complication. After completing his third rhinoplasty, Neven wasn't just enjoying clearer airways, he was also contending with a persistent medical issue that refused to subside. That's not an exaggeration. He underwent a procedure to reshape his nose and developed a condition that medical professionals refer to as priapism. It's an exceptionally rare side effect that sounds more like something out of a dramatic stage play than a standard complication from plastic surgery. The cause, as identified by medical experts, was a severe and unexpected allergic reaction to the anaesthesia used during the operation. As a result, Neven had to make a frantic trip back to Belgrade, dealing with something far more serious than typical post-surgery swelling. And to be clear, this was definitely not the kind of enhancement he was hoping for. But did this experience make him reconsider his choices? Not for a second. Despite his rather delicate situation, Neven continues to pursue his surgical ambitions, fully determined to modify every aspect of his appearance until he achieves satisfaction or becomes shiny enough to deflect paparazzi flashes. Some people are driven by a quest for fame. Neven, on the other hand, is chasing perfect symmetry and quite possibly a few more international headlines. His unofficial message seems to be that even when plastic surgery gives you the wrong kind of boost, you just have to pick yourself up very, very carefully and keep on going nose first. And now for Allegra Cole, who journeyed from the world of piano keys to the realm of selfies and silicone. Once in the heart of Salt Lake City, Allegra Cole was a mild-mannered piano instructor who had been brought up in a very strict and conservative Mormon home. But if we fast forward to her life today, it's a completely different picture. She has transformed into a bold Instagram model, having invested over $75,000 in bodily upgrades with absolutely zero regrets. The sheet music is gone, replaced by selfies, and she is hitting all the right notes with her filters and ever-growing list of followers. Allegra made a conscious choice to trade her traditional life for a total transformation. She walked away from teaching, completely reinvented her identity online, and managed to turn her enhanced curves into a literal business venture. Commanding a devoted fan base that now numbers in the millions, she successfully markets everything from cosmetics to inspirational content, all while showcasing her famous physique. And yes, her body has been meticulously sculpted. After 3 major surgeries, she claims she is only getting warmed up, even as her critics insist she has already taken things too far. Allegra's response is simple: I'm just getting started. For her, attaining the perfect physique isn't about vanity. It's a calculated branding move. It represents raw ambition poured into a curve-hugging dress, and it is a far more lucrative career path than teaching piano recitals ever was. From playing modest melodies to achieving massive digital fame, Allegra's story is a complete remix of a life that no one could have ever predicted. Welcome to our modern reality where investing in plastic surgery can actually mean you're going professional with your career. Now consider Tiffany Taylor, the woman who desperately tried to look like Ivanka Trump but ended up resembling everyone else. Tiffany's goal was never to become a generic celebrity. She specifically wanted to become the spitting image of Ivanka Trump. Yes, that Ivanka, the famously cool, blonde first daughter with an heiress's bone structure and an air of political grace. Following a painful divorce that left her with a shattered sense of identity, Tiffany came to believe that the best way to rebuild her life was to surgically transform into someone else entirely. Thus began her intense and all-consuming journey to become the world's next Ivanka lookalike. In the span of just 12 months, she underwent a staggering 13 operations. These included multiple nose jobs, breast augmentations, dermabrasion facial fillers, and extensive liposuction. It was essentially the Ivanka starter kit, but conspicuously missing the one key ingredient, any real resemblance to her idol. Eventually, doctors began to refuse her requests for more procedures, warning her that her obsession had become a serious risk. And the cruelest irony of all, almost no one thinks she looks anything like Ivanka. She gets compared to Britney Spears, sometimes Christina Aguilera, sure, but Ivanka, not even in the slightest. Some observers argue that Ivanka's appearance is too classically generic to be easily replicated. Others suggest that Tiffany is merely chasing an unattainable phantom, but the deeper truth of her story lies elsewhere. This quest was never truly about fame or superficial vanity. At its core, it was about deep emotional pain manifesting itself in her reflection. Emotionally raw in the wake of her divorce, Tiffany was attempting to piece her life back together, one painful procedure and one syringe at a time. The final product was not a perfect celebrity duplicate, but rather a profoundly human story of attempted reinvention, misguided efforts, and one woman's heartbreaking quest to transform personal loss into a new identity. Finally, we have Cindy Jackson, the real-life human doll, who transformed cosmetic surgery from a procedure into a complete lifestyle. The idea of aging gracefully was never on her agenda. Cindy Jackson basically took one look at Father Time and defiantly said, "Not on my watch, darling." This British blonde sensation at one point held the official Guinness World Record for having the most cosmetic procedures performed on one individual, a truly mind-boggling 52 separate surgeries. You can't even call that a makeover. It was more akin to a complete architectural renovation from the ground up. Her justification wasn't rooted in Hollywood pressures or a messy breakup, but rather a sincere and wonderfully eccentric wish to have her outer self reflect her inner energy. As she put it, "I feel 25 on the inside." So why shouldn't her appearance broadcast that same youthful vitality? While most people might invest in a high-end anti-aging serum, Cindy opted for what amounted to real-life full-body digital retouching. We are talking about an extensive catalogue of procedures, Botox injections, multiple facelifts, extensive liposuction chemical, skin peels, complete dental reconstruction and surgical lifts for her eyelids. Added to that, cheek fillers and essentially every procedure available short of having a zipper installed for quicker tune-ups down the road. The outcome, a remarkably smooth, flawlessly polished and crease-resistant version of herself that boldly challenges both biology and the honesty of most mirrors. Some might label her obsession as extreme, but Cindy simply calls it achieving alignment. In her mind, these surgeries were never about simple vanity. They were a form of profound self-expression, just with a scalpel as the primary tool. You could see it as a deeply personal human art project, one that happened to be backed by a very, very substantial line of credits. Next, we have Monique Allen. Her story tragically shifts from a celebrated queen of transformation to a devastating cautionary tale. Monique Allen didn't merely transition. Her journey was far more complex. She completely transformed, redefined, and quite literally reassembled her entire being, one surgical procedure after another. Born biologically male and struggling with a profound, lifelong sense of being in the wrong body, Monique embarked on a quest to construct the physical version of the woman she had always envisioned herself to be. However, somewhere on the path between her very first procedure and her 100th surgery, that beautiful dream twisted into an inescapable and ongoing nightmare. She ultimately subjected herself to an incredible 100 cosmetic procedures, a staggering 75 of which were performed illegally. We're talking about dangerous underground silicone injections, risky nose jobs in back alley clinics, and a do-it-yourself approach to body contouring that would make a Barbie doll recoil in shock. Monique had 12 litres of industrial-grade filler injected into her body, a volume of liquid greater than what most people consume during an entire weekend juice cleanse. What began as a journey of empowerment spiralled into a dangerous obsession. Every subsequent surgery was an attempt to correct the damage from the one before it. It was a desperate pursuit of perfection down a dark corridor with no exits. Predictably, her body started to rebel and fail. Her overall health collapsed, and in the most brutal twist of fate, the procedures left her permanently disabled, incapable of even walking without significant help. Reflecting on her choices, Monique now openly wishes she had found the strength to stop. She laments that she hadn't waited, that there hadn't been a voice to tell her, "You are already enough." But in a culture that often celebrates artificial beauty while penalising authenticity, she just kept going, carving away at herself until there was hardly anything left. Then there's Pixie Fox, who is essentially a cartoon character brought to life, one surgically removed rib at a time. Pixie Fox was never interested in looking merely human. Her ultimate aspiration was to embody a living cartoon, and she committed to this vision with everything she had. Imagine a blend of Jessica Rabbit and a character from a sci-fi fantasy epic with a generous dose of surgical audacity. Her physical transformation isn't just radical, it's practically from another galaxy. She has undergone more than 20 major surgeries, which include sculpting her jawline, several breast augmentations, and numerous fat transfers. The list continues with surgically changing her eye colour cosmetic surgery to create pointed elf-like ears, and most famously the removal of 6 of her lower ribs to achieve a waist of impossible proportions. After all, who truly needs all their internal organs when you can have a jaw-dropping silhouette? Her stated objective is to become a walking, breathing, animated creation. Her signature look features doll-like eyes proportions, straight out of a Disney classic, and a waist so slender you could circle it with a piece of dental floss. She even coined a phrase for her aesthetic goal, animated perfection. It reached a point where even the renowned doctors on reality television's plastic surgery shows had to draw the line. When Pixie came to them requesting even more alterations, they professionally and ethically declined her requests. It was far too risky, they explained. Too fabulous to stop, was her reported reply. Pixie's philosophy seems to be that everyday reality is completely overrated. And if one set of surgeons refuses to take you further on your journey, you simply find new ones. Just hope your ribs don't get lonely. Now for Justin Jedlicka, the human Ken doll, who famously rejected the gym in favour of the operating room for literally everything. Allow us to introduce Justin Jedlicka, known worldwide as the human Ken doll, the man who sculpted himself into a real-life plastic icon without performing a single workout. You heard that correctly. There was not one push-up, not a single sit-up, and absolutely no time spent on a treadmill. His chiseled six-pack was purchased, his bulging biceps were installed, and his entire physique is a custom-designed marvel of silicone-fueled ambition and a steadfast conviction that more is always the right answer. Justin underwent his initial surgery at the age of 18 and has been on a surgical journey ever since. This includes multiple rhinoplasties, implants for his shoulders, chest, and calves, along with extensive jaw sculpting. He is essentially a living, breathing, build-a-body workshop. His personal creed appears to be, if you can imagine it, a talented surgeon can implant it. You can forget about protein powders and weightlifting. Justin's physical gains are the result of surgical consultations and maxed out credit cards. He doesn't just resemble Ken. He embodies the Ken lifestyle, perpetually polished, perfectly pumped, and flawlessly symmetrical. And yes, he is immensely proud of his creation. Why settle for natural when you can be custom fabricated? While his critics might call it an addiction, Justin insists that he is simply an artist and his own body is his chosen canvas. It's a canvas that has cost well over several $100,000 and remains a work in progress. Because as he would say, true perfection, darling, is simply a procedure that never ends. And finally, Stalking Cat, the man who transformed himself into a tiger spiritually, surgically, and in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. Dennis Avner had no desire to be classically handsome or to look eternally youthful. His lifelong ambition was to become a tiger. And that's not a metaphor. He meant it in the most literal sense. Known globally as Stalking Cat Dennis, held a deep spiritual belief that his true essence was that of a large feline predator. He consequently dedicated many years and an immense fortune to dozens of surgical procedures to physically manifest his totem animal. This endeavour went far beyond your typical nip and tuck. We are talking about extensive facial tattoos to mimic feline stripes, subdermal implants to change the shape of his face, a surgically split upper lip, a flattened nose to appear more cat-like. He also had his ears surgically shaped to resemble a cat's, wore fang-like dental caps, and even possessed a mechanical remote-controlled tail. Yes, you processed that correctly. His tail was animatronic and could move at his command. Who needs to follow fashion trends when you have a full set of whiskers? Yet for Dennis, this was never about generating shock value or chasing celebrity status. This entire transformation was rooted in a profound spiritual journey. A shaman had allegedly revealed that his destiny was to embody his animal guide, a prophecy he pursued through numerous surgical procedures. Public perception was sharply divided. While many dismissed him as a bizarre spectacle, others admired his unwavering dedication to his personal convictions, no matter how startling the outcome. His unique story quickly captured national attention, landing him high-profile appearances on programmes like Ripley's Believe It or Not, and even an interview on Larry King Live. He ultimately cemented his place in history by earning a Guinness World Record for achieving the most body modifications to resemble an animal. Well,